Good morning, everyone. Let's see who is online. Okay, we have 30 people connected. More people still coming in, so we're gonna wait for a couple of seconds. We have both of our speakers already online. We have Olivier and we have Antoine. Okay, just let me check if we have any problem, any emails from people with difficulties coming in. All right, so welcome everyone to the second webinar in the explore phase of REACH. So today we're going to talk about the data sharing ecosystems, all the initiatives happening in Europe concerning this ambition of creating value from data sharing. And there are two initiatives that without any doubt you have already heard about in the news, which is the international data spaces and even more buzz in the media we hear from Gaia X. So this is today's agenda. We're going to have speakers from both initiatives going to speak. So first we have Olivier Senot from DocaPost. DocaPost is a company here in France. Well, I'll let Olivier introduce himself better, but it's one of the founding companies of Gaia X. As you know, Gaia X is a French-German initiative that's expanding now today to become a European-wide organization. And then we have International Data Spaces, which is an organization that was first created in Germany, but then is gaining a lot of momentum as well. And it's also becoming a European-wide initiative. So we have both of our speakers who I want to thank for taking the time to come in here to present both of your initiatives to all the participants. And the idea is that this webinar is not just for information, it's that both, so Gaia X and IDS, they both share the same ambition that we have in REACH, which is creating value from data sharing, from value chains, exchanging data across companies, individuals, and citizens, and public authorities. And we all have this same ambition. And the idea of what Olivier and Antoine are going to explain to us today is how SMEs can use what these initiatives have to offer. So Gaia X is still under preparation. IDS also. The idea is that the REACH consortium will work with IDS to have assets ready for the companies, for those companies that are going to continue with us on the second phase, on the experiment phase. The idea is that you guys can, if you find this, that this is helpful for your experiments, that you can use these assets for your experiments, and this way be conform to compliant to these standards that are emerging today for data sharing. So I can see that there are already some exchange in the chat, so please do not hesitate to ask your questions via chat. If you notice in the middle of the screen, you have a button. It's either in English, join the stage, or in French, aller sur scène. Basically, you can click on it so we can hear you and we can see you if you want to take the floor. But we shall do this at the end of each one of the presentations. So with no further ado, then I will give the floor to Olivier, who is going to introduce Gaia X. Olivier, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Juan. I will just upload the good media because I have some slides to explain how Gaia X could be a great endeavor for SMEs. Here it is. So in this short presentation, we could better know what is Gaia-X from user or CSP perspective, and just a small focus on federated services, because if we want to share data, we need to have a huge infrastructure to share them in a trust way, in a sovereign way for some of our data. And after that, a little focus on how we are organized in Gaia-X ISBL, which is the association of Gaia-X. Quick view on the roadmap, and of course, how you can participate furthermore in this Gaia-X endeavor. So first of all, what is Gaia-X? Gaia-X is a huge endeavor. One say it was a Franco-German initiative. That's true, but it's not really the true now, because we have close to 20 countries who joined the Gaia-X project. And right now is clearly a European project with, as I said, close to 20 countries to enable a secure, open, this is very important, open and sovereign use of data. More than sovereign, we can instead use trust environment for data, trust and transparency environment for data. So we built this and we start this this endeavor in 2019. Here it is, with big challenge, big objective, and a vision. A vision because right now, company, citizen want to share data. This is a need from the industry 4.0, for example, in automotive or in healthcare, but they could not share their data as they want without in a trust environment. So our vision is really to create a federate data infrastructure, a tool to share data in a European cooperation, in a huge European cooperation with a focus on transparency. We will see that after that in a few minutes. Transparency of the owner of the data, transparency of the compute of the data, store of the data, extra. And of course, with a privacy and security by design objective, because privacy and security are really in the heart of the mind of everyone as a citizen or as a company. Several challenge to face to do that. Of course, from the beginning, everything must be decentralized, and we will see how we could do that. Decentralized cloud does not exist right now, so this endeavor is also something very new, because Gaia-X is not a cloud. Clearly, it's not a new AWS or something else. It's something really new in the organization, in the infrastructure, to fight against this lack of transparency, or to build really sector specific for data sharing. So this is some of our challenge. Of course, if we want to share data, we need to have the same understanding of how to qualify data, and this is a big challenge regarding the ontology and semantic process to share data. So you can read all this challenge and you will not be surprised about this analysis of the challenge. And right now we'll see how we face this challenge. Before that, this Gaia-X association is a European one with more than 500 people already involved, 350 companies involved, even if we have 250 formal members, because We have large companies, small companies, startups, but also some university and some association like IDSA or some representative of public sector, but also a large community working on several concepts for GaiaX. So this is really a big European project right now to face this challenge and to build this new infrastructure. I insist, this is really a new one. Nothing else exists around the world. So if we go deeper inside this digital infrastructure, face right now four main objectives. Of course, the creation of the digital infrastructure to share data and to make happen an ecosystem for innovation over data, but also innovation over data sharing, over federated services, etc. Second is to increase transparency. Right now, when you use a cloud, you don't know where are your data, you don't know who is using your data, and what is done with your data. So this lack of transparency is really a challenge, and we aim to face this challenge by providing a full transparency infrastructure for your data. Data sovereignty, I don't like really this word because sovereignty means several things in several countries. So I propose to replace by data trust. Trust in the route they use, trust on the CSP who are storing them, trust about services, software as a service, for example, AI, deep learning, etc. And of course, reduction of dependency. This is one of the big challenge because right now, when you are a customer of one of the big cloud, you cannot ask for a reversibility or a portability of your data, your services. So this is also a challenge to make this infrastructure one transparent, reversibility, and portability of services. So we don't do that only for fun, even it's fun. Because it's really new and very interesting, but we also do that to increase the digital economy and the data-based digital economy. Actually, everybody know that data are the oil of 21st century. But nobody really know how to make more on new business over data. So to increase that, we think that we need to have a data-based business model shared by everyone in a high-level view. After that, everybody know that we need a large data protection for the data because, of course, if you read the press right now, you see a lot of case regarding the data. Excuse me, just a second. Here it is, lack of energy. So data protection to run this, we need a big data infrastructure. Here it is, the picture of GaiaX. So this is a picture you probably seen in the press, but this is really the summary of what is GaiaX with this 3 level. If we start with the red one, the peak one, with the CSP at the bottom of the X, you see all the CSP. CSP are service provider. Service provider like storage, like HPC, like edge computing, like network or sector-specific cloud, etc. Every company who could provide services are in this pink area. At the top of the X, we have the user area. The user area, of course, are about data space. Data space are really the art of Gaia-X. It's really here that everybody, user, company could make business with data, but also could share their data in a trust way. And in the middle, you see 4 green rectangle with the federated services. These federated services are the decentralized infrastructure allowing the red and the blue to communicate. And these 4 federated services are very simple. First is identity, to allow everybody to know each other. The federated catalog, to allow the CSP to expose what are their services. And on the right, the sovereign data exchange, that means the common core ontology and semantic for data. And of course, last but really not least, the compliance, because Gaia-X will be built over existing standards, over existing asset of general IT. What I mean is we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but use the component to make these federated services happen. So it is really the picture of Gaia-X. If we go through the user perspective, I see that a few minutes ago, but for user, it's very important to share data. Share data for what? To implement a new process for maintenance, for example, to implement new process for R&D in health, for example, by sharing data. And for user perspective, it's also an opportunity to brainstorm and identify the suitable use case they can achieve with a qualitative and quantitative set of data. Because this is also the aim, to have a big qualitative set of data by regrouping data of some vertical sector like finance, like health, agriculture, education, etc. So from a user perspective, it's the first time that they could, through an infrastructure, have access to a very large set of data, share their data with a supplier, share their data with perhaps customer in a cross-domain orientation and or in a vertical orientation. So from the user perspective, we identify several vertical sector. You can see it at the top. Energy, finance, agriculture, health, industry 4.0, mobility, including smart city, public sector, and smart living. For this first data space. Of course, this is not a closed list. In the future, we imagine that several other data space could be set up. A new one is the space data space, regarding only data from satellites or shuttle or everything. So this is not a closed list, but this list share a common cross-domain requirement regarding particularly the ontology. So we aim to be able to share in the cross-domain several data to make this really huge set of data in a cross-domain in Europe. If we go further, we can detail what are data space. So you can read, of course, the aim of Gaia-X is to facilitate this value creation, to facilitate this organization of this data space, and to bring to every company participating in this endeavor all they need to access to AI, to analytic, to big data, and all innovation from CSP, for example, but also inside data space themselves. What for? To have a data-driven horizontal and vertical, as I said, value chain. So it is very important to have in mind, this is the first time several sectors could share their data in a trust way on a new infrastructure. Of course, everybody have in mind that this new business must be in a sustainable way, and the innovation ecosystem is right now mature to make this happen, make new business in a sustainable way. Some use case and some variable insight for this use case. So this use case need to be built by the participant to identify common cross-domain requirement, and this cross-domain requirement must be shared by all domains for a part of this requirement. And after that, we have a process in five steps, and you can see it at on the slide. But what we do is to organize these 5 steps to allow this data space to be built, and be sure all this data space could share the same solution, could share and enable all the ontology, the semantic, and the infrastructure requirement for all these domains. So really, this is our value added as Gaia-X ISBL, to organize that, to be sure this endeavor of a large set of data shared by everybody in a trust way could happen. If we go through the provider perspective, so if you remind the bottom of the X in pink for the provider perspective. So the provider, of course, some of our members are provider, and what is needed for them to be part of this infrastructure. Some of key assets based on the European value, like portability, because we fight against keylogger, for example. Of course, interoperability and reversibility. So this is really the key value of the European area, and this cloud service provider could be from several industry like AA, like HPC, like CCC, like every specific or general provider. When they are part of the Gaia-X infrastructure, they had to share the same information to the federated catalog to facilitate transparency and information regarding user. And of course, this technical stack called federated services must be shared, and CSP must be compatible with this federated stack. This federated stack is an open source one and an open system one. So this is also important. But the last is also that this federated stack is decentralized stack. As you see here, the architecture of standard that you can read the full document on data-infrastructure.eu. You can download the document. The new version, the 2.0 version, has been published a few days ago, and you can read all the architecture of standard, how we organize technically this new infrastructure. So I will not go further in that because it's really a technical way, but I invite you to make two things: connect to the data-infrastructure.eu to download this document, or directly on the landing page of Gaia-X at gaia-x.eu. The document is also published on gaia-x.eu. And second thing, I invite you to connect to Talk. We will talk about it after that, with a private network with some video. And in this video, you can have access to replay, to deep dive in technical seminar. Last but not least, because it's the heart of communication, what are the federation services? So I say a lot about federation services, but we can just make a little stop on them to you see my screen? Yes. So as I say, identity and trust. Of course, as a decentralized infrastructure, we need to have an IAM process decentralized based on decentralized authority. So this is currently ongoing, and we will see in the roadmap when we can provide to everybody these federated services with the identity, with the federated catalog. The federated catalog is very simple. Every CSP must connect to this federated catalog and must announce to the user who they are, what are they doing, where are they located, how they are organized. And this federated catalog is one of the key of the transparency for user to choose services match with the aim of the use of the data of each user. The two on the right, the sovereign data services. So this is to allow everybody to share the same ontology and semantic, to share data, and the compliance. Of course, it's very important to establish this compliance framework with the existing standard. Once again, we will not create new standard for this new infrastructure, but use existing standards to be sure to be more as open as possible to allow every company to connect without qualifying or changing their process to match with a new standard. So we will not create standard, but only use existing standards. So here it is for the picture of Gaia-X. And now let's jump quickly, because it's 10:30, in the Gaia-X structure. So how we organize this. So Gaia-X is an ISBL. We will have a deep look inside in a few minutes, but Gaia-X is not alone. Gaia-X is also communicating with Gaia-X hubs, and there is one hubs by country. Actually, we have 8 hubs already online, and by June 2021, we will have 14 hubs online, and by December 2021, we will have close to 20 to 25 hubs online all around Europe. This is for the organization, and the hub have a big mission to federate local company to guide them into GaiaX project, but also to make happen company who want to join data space or to create data space. And at the bottom, you can see a word said open work packages, because GaiaX Association, the ISBL, will not develop anything, but based all the development on the GaiaX community. And this GaiaX community is, as I say, more than 500 people who are working in specific way. And the GaiaX ISBL organize this work through work package and through working group. If we go a little bit deeper in this working group, you can see on screen that we have 6 working groups, and for each working group from 2 to 20 open work package regarding each specific detail of the building of the infrastructure. If we go a little bit far, in the GaiaX ISBL, we have 4 main objectives. Of course, the first is to use standards, so it's to check that every component are in line with existing standards. We provide, of course, some fundamental to organize the work, and for the software community to facilitate and also to facilitate data space creation. But I've also said that before. If just for information, so GaiaX ISBL is an association, it's a Brussels-based association, and the General Assembly elects the board member. The next General Assembly is on June 7, and the board of director appoint, of course, our management team. So the CXO team is now complete. We have a CEO, Francesco Bonfiglio. We have a CTO, Pierre Grandier. We have a COO, his name will publish, I think, next week. And we have a CFO with Janet. So all the CXO team is now complete. And the CEO drive every group, every working group to make happen this Alpha Zero by the end of the year. I will show you that on the roadmap. At the right and the left of the board of directors, you have 2 advisory boards. One it's general and one is a political, governmental advisory board, because GaiaX ISBL have very strict status. Only company, NPO, academic, or research institute could be part of this ISBL. So government representative could not be a member, and to allow communication between several governments, European Commission, we create this general advisory board on this governmental advisory board. Last, you have 3 main committees. The technical committees, who is really structured the technical infrastructure. One is a policy rule committee who define what are the policy for user, for CSP, all time based on European value. And this policy rule committee is very important because at the board of directors, even if GaiaX ISBL is open worldwide, so every country could become a member of this association, only European country could be elected at the board of directors. So this is also a very important thing. We want to keep the destiny of Gaia X in European and only. So this is why the board of directors could not accept a non-European company to be elected at this board of directors. Here it is for this committee and this internal organization. And let's jump now in data space and the data space organization. I'm sorry, there are some work just above me. There's a little bit noise probably. So for each data space, the common requirements are summarized in 4 characteristics. Of course, the data sovereignty and transparency. This is really the focus, but not only. I repeat it, interoperability on a semantic level are needed for data space. So that means data could be shared with all the cross-domain in a partial core component. Of course, more than one single source of truth. That means when mobility sector share data, you could have several, I don't know, travel, several source of data saying the same thing. So that means there is not just one source of truth. And of course, everything could be Nathan overlapping. So this is important, but this is like a consequence. If we go right now to the hubs, because the hubs are really very important in this organization. As you can see, we have several hubs. The map is not up to date because everything is going very fast. So we have several hubs already online, already running to allow local company to have Gaia X relay on the country, to have some deeper information, and to structure, organize with the other hubs, with the other country, the data space construction. Really, the hubs are dedicated to data space, and this is important to have this relay in each country to make this project a full European project. We could go deeper. I will let you, because it's 10:40 now, so I will let you see. We can share this presentation, of course. The organization of the hub and the process we follow to build the hub. I can answer a question if you have several questions, but I have to quick a little bit. So the roadmap. As I say, we have 3 main milestones in this roadmap. First is the General Assembly on June 7, because the board could be changed, of course. And the second one is in September with the publication of several documents. And by the end of the year, the alpha release of the first federated services operational with several CSP and several data space on it. So really, we are now on April. So we have 8 months to build everything. Of course, we have started. And make a public announcement of an alpha release by the end of the year. In the meanwhile, we have several milestones. On, as you can see, we organize very regularly some webinar to inform everybody where we stand, where we are, and where we go in each topic. For example, this afternoon at 3 p.m., we have a big webinar regarding data space. We make a first webinar last year about data space to explain what we want to do, and right now we explain where we are, where we stand regarding the data space construction. So if you can, it will be a good deep dive in what are data space. Of course, you can participate. I will go quick in this few slides. Right now, you are in like an information webinar, and you can complete a form, a questionnaire, to say what you want to do in GaiaX, and after that, we have a process to route you to a hub if your question or your you want to be involved in data space, for example, through work package or directly to the IESBL, to allow you to participate in several working groups. Here is the teeny URL of the questionnaire if you're interested in, and if you have some question, you are really a big interest to connect to the Talk network. This Talk is a big repository with video, with document, with presentation, since we have started this big challenge to build GaiaX. You have also two websites. One is data-infrastructure.eu, where you can read a lot about GaiaX since its beginning in 2019. And you can download, of course, technical documents. You can download presentation and have really a deep look in the frequently asked questions. By reading this website, you will have a big knowledge about GaiaX. I can make focus on several documents, three category of document. The objective, what we want to do with the position paper, the initial position paper. Second, with the ecosystem, the user requirement, and what user could attend from GaiaX. And after that, the technical implementation to have a deep dive in how we build GaiaX. So welcome if you want to be part of GaiaX and create a new way of business, this new way of infrastructure in sharing data. Thanks for your attention. I think I'm not too late. It's 10:46. Juan.
That is okay, Olivia. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're a little bit late on the agenda, but sorry?
Perhaps okay, it's me. I don't know.
Can you hear me? No, you cannot hear me. Okay. Emmanuel, can you hear me? Okay, yes, you can. Okay. I thought Olivier was not able to hear me. Okay, so thank you very much, Olivier, for this very comprehensive presentation. We are indeed a little bit late, but that's okay because one of the slots for today had to cancel at the last minute. So the good news is that this gives us a bit of more time. So thank you very much again for the very comprehensive presentation. I think we can see top down all the entire vision of GaiaX. So what's the ambition behind and what are all the activities? And so we still, what I take from it is that there is a lot of work going on because the ambition is very big to create a federation of all these cloud infrastructures around Europe and to build it by sharing a set of common values and policies for data sharing and for sovereignty. And of course, this in building this from the existing standards and to make them work together, this is a huge work. And then also to create an innovation ecosystem with the data spaces and so on. So yeah, I understand that you have a lot of currently ongoing activities. So the identification of requirements, domain specific, cross-domain, you're creating this architecture, you have identified these sets of use cases. So for information, for everyone's information on the data-infrastructure.eu website, GaiaX has published a gallery of use cases. And when you go inside, you can see that they're classified by sector, and you will see that many of them have similar ambitions to the experiments that you guys are going to develop here within Reach. So I think we're all working on the same direction. And then, of course, it is very interesting that the fact that you are building trust and you are going to have this catalog of federated services. So the federated identity and trust catalog, the fact that you are going to support and encourage the usage of these standards for semantic interoperability. And I noticed in the roadmap that the alpha release for these federated services is going to happen next November, if I'm not mistaken. And so, yeah, that means this is in the evolve phase. So, yes, synchronizing this with the Reach calendar. So, November is the beginning of the evolve phase for us, which is the third phase in our incubation process. So, at this stage, we will have 5 companies that will make it to this phase. And of course, there will be 10 companies actually that will have developed minimum viable products within Reach. But then, yeah, from these 10 companies, they all have the opportunity to test these alpha federated services if they wish. And I think it would be very interesting because, as you said before, there's a lot of support. It's getting a lot of momentum, this initiative. So yeah, I encourage everyone to keep up with GaiaX. I will just display the slide where you display the tiny URL for the onboarding process. So there is a questionnaire. So if you guys are interested, please go inside, fill in the questionnaire so you can be contacted. So yeah, to invite you if it's interesting to become a member or to follow up on the webinars and so on. Okay, so I want to give the floor to anyone who has any questions. So either from our startups or from the Reach consortium. I see that some of our technical partners from the consortium are online. Do you guys have any questions for Olivier? Okay, if not, then we will just continue to be in contact, and then again, we at the Reach consortium with the technical group, we will look together at everything that's going on. So there's a couple of interesting documents that we need to look at. So the architecture of standards, everything that's your initiatives related to the creation of the data spaces. And with these 10 companies that will be selected at the end of May, we will start seeing how we can orient, drive them towards GaiaX to see if they can adopt the services that GaiaX is going to offer. And then, of course, it will be a big plus for them to launch their market based on the true European sovereign infrastructure. So thank you very much, Olivier. And we can continue now with Antoine's presentation on international data spaces. Antoine, are you ready? So Antoine, you have to click on the button that says, yes, I think you did. Yes, you have.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Antoine. Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll be sharing my screen. Just a sec. Okay. Great. Let's use the presentation mode. I think now it's okay, right? We're
Yes.
seeing the same thing.
Pretty good, yes.
Great. One more minute, please. Yes, this is better that way. Yes. So good morning, everyone. I'm Antoine Garnier. I work for IDSA. IDSA so stands for International Data Space Association. We are developing a standard and also promoting it for data sovereignty mainly. So this association was created 6 years ago on this assumption that is now pretty clear and which has a great momentum about data sharing, and that it could be kind of the next oil for the economy. Just look at the EU strategy on data that was recently published, or the Data Governance Act, or Gaia-X that we just talked about. This is definitely something that has a momentum, most probably nothing really new for all of you here today. But well, coming back to this oil for the data economy, the assumption that the association wanted to deal with is that, well, we see that it will be useful for anyone wanting sharing data and to make some value using it, but at the same time you don't want to lose control over your data. So you are in this balance that you deeply think that it will make create some value, but on the other hand you don't want to lose the control over this data. So this is the, let's say, the challenge, the pain point that the association is now trying to solve for some years with this standard. So basically, what the association is doing, and what we envision, is that the framework that has been published and that we are continuing to develop is working just like a big, large peer-to-peer network. So in other words, any kind of data endpoint, as you can see here, so whether it is a data marketplace or any kind of cloud, industrial cloud, enterprise cloud, anyway, or any data source, or at company level, anything also related to that, or any robots. Actually, you can use you can directly connect a robot to the network. I mean, to the ecosystem if you want to. They just have to use an IDS connector. These are those blue dots that you can see here. And what International Data Space propose here is to add some data usage constraint on the data that will travel in this ecosystem. And then once you have the data set that are sent with this usage constraint, well, you keep an eye on how they are consumed, and it gives you some lever to share information that otherwise you won't have shared. More largely, the three pillars that the framework is based on are those three white dots. So endless connectivity, the trust, and also the government, aka usage policy. So the connectivity, when I say endless connectivity, this is pretty much simple. It means that it's domain and technology agnostic semantic. I'll come back to that later on. Trust, simply said, it means that you have to be certified to really certify who you are or who you claim you are. And governance, this is the usage control that I was just talking about. So one step further, you have here the three things that are especially developed within the framework, and that we will be now having a look at in three different parts of this presentation. So first one is the interoperability. As I said, this is domain and technology agnostic. And the idea, as we will see, is really to provide some value, help you to provide the value to your data using metadata, of course. And the trust then is the certification. So we will have a look at the certification process just to ensure, again, to check that you are the one that you claim you are. And governance, this is mainly usage control and this refined way of sharing your data, which is not anymore, let's say, only access control, but usage control. So this is what IDSA brings. So interoperability. So let's have a look at how it is working within the framework. What you can see on the left side of your screen is this carbon shape, this representation, of the information model, looking like a carbon atom with the different branches, so the 6 branches. This is the domain agnostic common language of the international data space. Basically, this is a RDF-based ontology, which then reuse different other existing ontology to better describe the data that you'd like to share within the ecosystem, so with all the trusted participants. And what this metadata will add to your data is basically helping you to transform your data set into a data asset. So said in other words, you will have the possibility to add information about the quality of your data, about the provenance of your data, as you can see here on the bottom part of the representation of the information model. But you could also add a price. This is not written here, but it should be. But you can also add any elements that are not directly related to the content, but that will again add value to your data. And also you will express the policy that could be attached to your data and how it should be consumed by the consumer of your data, depending on some policy. We will go back to that again. And this is based on existing ontology. Actually, if I take just a couple of examples here, you can also, just taking some example here. So provenance is based on the prov ontology. So this is a vocabulary expressing a provenance information. The quality is DQV, so data quality vocabulary. This is a W3C ontology. Policy is based on ORDL, so Open Digital Right Language. Again, W3C recommendation. And the rest for expressing the content, for instance. So attaching which ontology it is based on. I'm talking about your data set. This is based on common SHACL, DCAT, and ontology like that. So yeah, long story short, transforming your data set into a data asset. how does it work on a more practical way? So if you wanted to really share and describe your information in share your data set into the ecosystem, well, you have to perform a couple of operations before this data. This metadata can be shared and be visible into the ecosystem. So basically, you have the conceptual representation of your data, which is more or less the document itself, how it is related with the different information. So UML representation, for example, then it will be transformed into this RDF-based ontology, so the IDS ontology, where you can express constraint and add information about the quality, the price, just as I said before. And then it will be almost automatically be transformed into this programmatic representation, which will be, of course, the way to instantiate this information model into your connector I was talking about just before, so that it can be used within the ecosystem. I know some automation in Java. There are other attempts currently in JavaScript, in .NET, Go, and other coming. So here we are for the interoperability. Coming to the certification now. So first, interoperability, then certification. So certification. So first, let's have a look at the process, how you can be certified to enter an IDS ecosystem. So this is the overall presentation on how the manual evaluation give an end to the technical certification that will be then deployed into your connector and attached to your information model, actually. So basically, you are an applicant here. You have to go to any evaluation facilities that is appointed, that then perform an evaluation. Then you have this relationship with the certification body that is actually hiring and appointing evaluation facilities. And once you've been allowed the certificate, you've been allowed this certificate, it will be then transformed into a technical certificate. So currently we're using X509 certificate that will be then deployed into your connector. That way, anyone, I said it was a peer-to-peer network, so anyone wanting to check your identity will just have to have a look at this X509 certificate, and with a relationship to the identity provider, check this is a good certificate, so to say. So this is the really high-level view, but well, this is more or less working that way. Going a bit into more detail here, participant and component should be certified in an IDS compliant ecosystem. There are different level of, let's say, assurance. So it like raise the trust because it means that you will have to answer more criteria. You will have to perform more check into your security, into the communication, into the asset management, organization of information security, and so on and so forth. And this is more or less the same thing on both sides, so participant and component. The good part of the story is that, as you can see here, there are an entry level and a base security profile, which is a self-assessment, basically. In other words, for any, let's say, startup that want to first check and just enter the ecosystem, well, you have this certificate, meaning that you just have to have a look at the criteria catalog, see if you are respecting the criteria, and then you can jump in and enter the ecosystem. On the other hand, if you wanted to share some data, sensitive data, or access some sensitive data that are shared in the ecosystem with another participant, maybe this data is required the consumer to provide a trust profile connector, for instance, meaning that you will have to raise also the trust. You know what I mean? So it is the barrier to enter the ecosystem is pretty low. But on the other hand, if you want to access sensitive data, well, you will have maybe to perform some certification activity. I was referring to those criteria, certification criteria catalog. Well, they are both available for component, but also participants. We are calling operational environment, both on our website. I can provide the link after the presentation. Coming to the third pillar, and actually, just to link with Olivier's presentation before, those three things, so interoperability, trust, and usage control, so aka sovereignty. The three of them are described into the Gaia-X architecture document that has been published recently, I think end of March. And they are mandatory, if I'm not wrong. So this is pretty much aligned currently with the Gaia-X efforts, of which actually IDSA is also a founding member. So coming to the usage control, so the basic idea is that people and company especially might have different demand regarding the use of data. For instance, this data analyst in the in the upper right-hand side part of your screen say if no user consent is given, well, the data must be anonymized before being shared. The supplier on the right-hand side, so top right-hand side, data must only be used by supplier for at most 3 days. And so on and so forth. There are other examples in the lower part of the circle that you can see. This is exactly what I wanted to meant. These are examples of usage requirement, how the data should be used. And this is what the framework of IDSA try to solve, include in the framework, and with the help of some technology provider, also solved it from a technical point of view. But currently, what we have is more or less an access control. And an access control is, in most cases, not enough. So just as an example here, you can have some role-based decision to whom can be accessing the data, but also the application context could be different. Well, this is the idea, but this is pretty binary, and the problem here is that on the right-hand side of your screen, once the data is shared, this is completely binary. So it means that either you grant the access or you're not. And when it's shared, after, you don't know what happened. Well, this is not the only solution. You can have an attribute-based access, so it refines the access part, so to say. So you can check the security profile of the device that is accessing the data. You can check the location also, the device itself, or room is accessing the data. But again, it doesn't solve the problem of once the data is shared and that you grant or not the access, well, you completely lose track. So what we propose here with an attribute-based usage control is to combine actually access control and all the things that are already available with this usage control. And as presented in the example before, being able to grant usage, but only for some time, inform the people that the data has been shared, also anonymized data if needed before being shared, and depending on the kind of participant that want to access the data. Or on the other hand, it can be a no, or it can be a no with reporting an incident, for instance. And that way you can envision a complete complete value chain exchanging data, whether there are competitors in the same ecosystem or not. So this is the idea. Currently, there are a couple of usage policy that are executed. I gave a couple of example here. There are others. We can come back to that later on if you have a question on that part. And just to link it with the semantic, so the information model, this is the ORDAL part here that is used to provide access in this refined way, plus a couple of components to ensure that it's properly executed. There is a paper, a complete paper on that. I will give the link at the end of the presentation. So long story short, this is not granting access versus usage control. This is combining the best of the two existing technology here to really refine the way you are sharing your data and ensuring the most active control over this data. Where we are currently, so as I said, the language for this data sovereignty, this is the ORDL ontology. And there are a couple of components I was referring to just before. They are described in this paper. I will give the link at the end of the presentation again. And yes, actually, what you can see, and this is the reason of having this slide here, is that the idea is really to make the enforcement of these policies more and more automatic. So in other words, replace or complement the legal enforcement, so written contract, into a technical enforcement, so more or less smart contract. Okay, and being able to make that more or less automatic, so that you have really a vivid ecosystem where you can share information, share data in a pretty much seamless way. You just want this data, well, everything is done automatically. This is not the case yet. We are working on it. Where we are currently, there is already a standard that has been that is existing on German level. So DIN stands for, so this is the German body for standardization, and the DIN spec 27070 is this standard, sorry, presenting the reference architecture of a security gateway for exchange of industrial data, aka the connector, basically. And it is describing the different requirement for this gateway to exist and to be exist according to the standard, and also present a specification of the different profile that I've been talking about before. So what are the criteria to have base connector? What are the criteria to have a trust and a trust plus? What you can also find here is the communication between the different entity of an IDS ecosystem. As you can see here, two trusted connector are exchanging data directly, peer-to-peer network again, connecting different elements from their infrastructure to exchange data. And here you have the identity provider. There is the same thing in Gaia-X. These are part of the federated services, if I'm not wrong. And the App Store and the broker, well, they are the federated catalog that is presented in the Gaia-X architecture model. Okay. So looking at the DIN spec again, so this was just to illustrate the different profile and what you have to achieve. Again, this is more detail into the criteria catalog document that I can share at the end of this presentation. So there are other initiatives existing at European level, especially. We are interweaving our architecture to make it really strong at European level. The discussion are going on, and yes, this is just to mention that we are not alone in the world, and that we're trying to make this joint effort so that we have a strong standard at the end. Currently, IDSA is composed of 100, so around, this one is not up to date, so 130, I guess, members, with a majority of companies. I think this is 2/3 versus 1/3 for RTOs. And as you can see, they are mostly European, but not only. With big companies, everyone in who is interested to make the data evolve. So as a conclusion of this presentation, well, let's build data space. I'm more than happy to answer all of your questions. Think about potential proof of concept, anything that you might be interested in. This is definitely a topic that is, as you are all aware, getting some momentum. As I said at the beginning, there are a lot of calls research-wise that are coming that are dedicated to data space and or data sharing. So yeah, let's use this opportunity to make more for data space. So I'm Antoine Garnier. There are a couple of comments here. And just before finishing, so first, a useful link that I will be sharing just after this presentation also. So IDSG, which is the common, let's say, the single point of truth of the association, where you can find all specification of the available component, actually. For now, sorry. Connector, most probably the most up-to-date implementation currently available, so the data space connector, with a complete GitHub, a very comprehensive and consistent GitHub wiki, on the GitHub. So you should check that if you wanted to make first step with the connector. Information model, if you were interested into understanding what the semantic behind IDSA is. And usage control policy, again, more detail is provided in this paper. Very last thing, two events that are coming. First, the IDSA Summit, end of June. If you want to talk anything related to IDSA, this is the point to join. You'll have there a lot of experts, people interested in data sharing anyway, a lot of use case presented. I'm talking about mature use case and things like that. One very last thing is the Data Week, which will happen end of May. And I mentioned this event because within it, we will be organizing a workshop called, the name is not finalized, but Connector Party. I guess that you get the idea. Basically, we will use a test bed, and the participant will receive instruction beforehand. And on the day of the workshop, you will be invited to register your connector, or maybe beforehand, I think, and also to to have a little practical exercise just to share data with your peers. I mean, the peers of the day. Okay, so this is really a practical exercise to show you that yeah, this is going in the good direction, and this is becoming let's say, yeah, more simpler to join a data sharing ecosystem, IDSA compliant. I think this is an excellent opportunity if you want to test IDS technology. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antoine. Do we have any questions from the audience? Okay. In the meantime, we'll see if we get any questions. So thank you very much, Antoine, for the very comprehensive presentation. So we can see that, yes, with IDS, we have a very concrete mechanism that is being proposed. So this reference architecture, this information model that, like Antoine said, so a couple of points taken from his presentation, to go from data sets to data assets. So it's the idea of just having raw data. For instance, today in Reach, we have all these data providers that are sharing data sets, and we actually have a data catalog in the Reach Incubator website, but these are just data sets. If we could, if these data providers could develop this layer on top of it, that transforms them in data assets, where they describe this information model with the 6 C's that you mentioned, Antoine, at the beginning of your presentation. So the communication, concept, context, and I forgot the others. Yeah, this describes not only just the data, but also describes the conditions, or the conditions for usage of this data. And this is where the added value of IDS is, if I'm not mistaken. And so yes, so this allows not only just to better describe the data and better to describe the conditions on how data providers provide this data, but also allows them to be more visible. Yeah, so Antoine has given us the catalogs for certification, for certifying that the solutions are compliant with the IDS standard. So we see that there is already an official standard from the German standardization body on the connector. So that's all very interesting. And like I said at the very beginning of the session, is we're going to talk with IDS in the following days, because we want to really build something, a proof of concept for you guys, for the Reach beneficiaries, to see how, to show you with concrete examples how it can look like. Well, how does it look like when you adopt IDS, and what's the benefits you get? So I have one question, and it is actually for both of you, and it's one question that comes up very often, and at least in my network here in France, is that are IDS and Gaia-X. So I know the answer is no, but many people wonder if IDS and Gaia-X somehow are competitors, in the sense that they both share the same ambition. They are both initiatives that were born a little bit in parallel. And I know that you guys are working together to synchronize and to provide a common offer. So can you please tell us, both of you, how Gaia-X and IDS are going to work together? Who wants to answer first?
Do you want to start, Olivier?
I think your microphone is on, Olivier.
You're still muted.
Let me see if I can.
Maybe I can start then. The time for Olivier to.
All right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So so there are a complete webinar for that, actually available somewhere on YouTube. But the basic answer, from a technical point of view, I think this can be interesting for everyone here. What IDSA did in the last year we try to keep it aligned with what is done currently in Gaia X. So in other words, using the technology of IDS should be compliant with Gaia, what Gaia X will provide. I think this is pretty much high level what is described currently in the architecture document. But well, I'm pretty sure, knowing the interaction, that it will still align. Organization-wise, well, if you want to influence the standards for data sovereignty, your place is in IDS. If you want to use the standards as an end user and just use the technology, so to say, your place is in Gaia X10.
Yes, excuse me, I have some difficulty with my mic. So as you said, IDS is a tool to transform data in data assets. And of course, Gaia X is based on this data asset. So what I can say that Lars is with us and is participating and actively participating in the construction of Gaia X. And of course, Gaia X will use or perhaps be inspired by the IDSA. So be sure IDSA and Gaia X are working together, and I can confirm that we work together to bring this tool as a based infrastructure for data sharing. So yes, of course, the answer is yes, we are working together very hardly to use this tool in Gaia X.
Great. Okay, so that's great to hear. And yes, we will check out this webinar where there was this collaboration was described more in depth, and I think Antoine gave us a very good way to situate both initiatives. So yeah, so the place where we should be if we want to influence the standards for data sharing, and if we want to contribute or let's say as an user of these data spaces. So yes, it's rather on the Gaia X side. Okay, so I think we arrive to the end. I want to thank you again, both of you, for your time and your availability for these presentations. We will contact you again because, like I said before, so just to give you again the overview, we are in the first phase of our incubation process. We have 32 companies that are beneficiaries of the REACH program, and at the end of May, there's going to be a competition, a demolition pitch contest, where these 32 companies will compete to be selected among the 10 companies to go in phase 2, which is the experiment phase. And this is where the actual technical development, implementation of their experiments is going to take place. So this is where we will be able to talk more technically on what we can do with them. So for Gaia X, the alpha, the federated services, the alpha release is not going to happen yet, but still there are clues, there are things that can be considered in the roadmap of each one of these companies if they want to synchronize with the Gaia X effort. And again, we will discuss in the very next days with Antoine Garnier to see how we can move forward. We will have both presentations available. So as you can see, there are several resources that have been shown. So Antoine has posted some links here in the chat, but we will distribute the presentations so you can take a look at the different documents, the architecture for standards. So as you can see, being compliant with standards for interoperability is something that is going to give you extra points in the evaluation process of the incubation program. So please keep this in mind. All right, so if there is no other questions, I don't see any questions in the chat. So I want to thank both of you for your availability. Thank you all for being there, and talk to you very soon.
Thank you to invite us, and see you soon.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye.